Well, we're getting very close now to the point where we can take some pretty good educated guesses about the meaning of the letter of Philemon, both to the original audience, which includes Philemon and Apphia and Archippus and the church that met in Philemon's house. Before we make those educated guesses, I'd like to review what we've done up to this point just to help you remember all that you've already done and learned. First of all, we listened to the book of Philemon, or you did, you and I both, several times. We did that sort of together through the videos, and then you were to do some of it on your own. Trying to figure out how to get this so the light doesn't get blocked by too awfully much. Then we wrote down, or you wrote down, things that jumped out at you as the book was being read by someone else as you listened to it. Then you narrowed that list to 5. And then we identified repetitions in the book of Philemon. So you learned that one of the observational clues we work with is repetitions, and that's one of the most important observational clues. You also examined those repetitions, so you learned that there are 2 sub-steps to the step of observation: identify and examine. Then you learned 2 other observational clues: contrast and comparisons. And so you identified and examined any contrast and comparisons that you found in the book of Philemon. Then you learned another observational clue, which is who. And so you identified the who's in Philemon. And then instead of asking you to examine all of the who's, because there are a lot of them, I only ask you to examine the who's of Paul, Philemon, Onesimus, Apphia, and Archippus. And then we started with the where's in Philemon. So that's another observational clue. And you identified and examined all of those where's. And then after that, you learned the observational clue of when. And so you identified and examined all of the whens that you found in Philemon. And then I talked about the whens that are found in Matthew 9:18 to 26. Remember the Jesus was talking to John's disciples, and suddenly the synagogue leader came and, my daughter has died, come help her. And on the way to his house to deal with his daughter, the woman who had the hemorrhage for 12 years, suddenly, etc., etc. Remember that. So we talked about that when. I'm going to switch to this side and see if maybe the lighting is better. I think it is. Hope it is on your end. It looks better to me as I'm looking at the screen. After all of that, we then read or listened to the book out loud again. And then you started to learn about interpretation, how to ask questions of meaning, and how to ask those why questions, bombarding the text. And you remember that we're not questioning the integrity of the Bible. We're not questioning the authenticity of the Bible. We're not questioning the authority of the Bible. We're asking questions of meaning because we do value the Bible so much, and it is authoritative for us, and we want to understand it well and apply it to our lives. So we're asking questions of meaning. And so then you learn how to do interpretive work using those questions and considering possible responses. So just as observation has 2 steps, identify and examine, interpretation in this sense has 2 steps. We ask the questions and then we consider possible responses to at least some of those questions. So you eventually, with different videos, have done interpretive work, that is asking questions and considering responses, concerning the repetition of appeal, the repetition of brother sister, the contrast between Onesimus as former slave and Onesimus as current beloved brother, the contrast between Onesimus and Paul's heart, that's in verse 12, and the comparison between Onesimus and Paul's heart, and then the comparison between Paul and Onesimus in verse 17. So you have done an awful lot, and you're doing really well. You've learned repetitions, contrasts, comparisons, whens, whos, and wheres. Whens, okay, I lost count. Repetitions, contrasts, comparisons, whens, whos, and wheres. So you've learned 6 observational clues, and these are 6 of the most important ones, so that's great. So in the next video, I'm going to review my examine of the who's of Philemon and Paul and Onesimus. We've done this before, but they're the 3 most important characters in this letter. So I'm going to review those, And then I feel like you'll be ready to take those educated guesses related to the meaning of the book, and I'll have a way to guide you in that process, okay? So I'll see you in the next video.